When Michael Turner arrived in the Philippines, something immediately felt wrong. The people around him had far less money than anyone he knew back in Chicago, yet they looked far happier. Not polite happiness, not social media happiness, real happiness. The kind that shows up in loud laughter, relaxed conversations, and the easy way people smile when life feels good. Michael couldn't understand it. Back home, happiness was supposed to come after success, after promotions, after bigger paychecks, after climbing higher than everyone else. But here, in a country where many people earned in a month what some Americans spent in a weekend, something didn't add up. Back in Chicago, Michael believed happiness followed a simple formula: a better job, a bigger apartment, a faster promotion. Everything in his life followed that logic. Work harder, earn more, upgrade your life, and eventually happiness would follow. That was the system he had trusted for years. And on paper, it worked. Michael had built a respectable consulting career, earned a comfortable income, and lived in a modern apartment surrounded by restaurants, offices, and endless activity. By every visible measurement, his life looked successful. But beneath that success, something always felt slightly unfinished. The more he achieved, the more it seemed like the next milestone appeared just beyond reach. Promotions led to bigger expectations. Raises led to higher expenses. Even vacations often felt rushed, squeezed between deadlines waiting back at the office. Life kept moving forward, but the feeling of satisfaction never stayed for long. Michael assumed that was normal. Everyone around him seemed to live the same way. Everything began to shift the night he arrived in the Philippines. After checking into the apartment his company had arranged, Michael decided to walk through the neighborhood. The street outside looked nothing like downtown Chicago. The road was narrow. Small houses and roadside shops stood close together. The air smelled like grilled food and warm spices drifting through the evening breeze.
Just a moment,
A small roadside eatery caught his attention.
Take two, please.
Plastic tables and chairs were scattered across the sidewalk under a few hanging light bulbs. Families sat close together, sharing plates of simple food.
We should come back.
Children ran barefoot through the street, laughing loudly as they chased each other around the tables. Parents watched them calmly, talking and smiling as if nothing in the world demanded their attention. Friends leaned toward each other in animated conversations, occasionally
Cheers to a
bursting
great
into
night.
laughter
And to
that
good
echoed
company.
down the street.
And this amazing food.
The
Everything
meals
is so
cost less than the
delicious.
coffee
This
Michael had
place
bought
is
at the
incredible,
airport earlier
right?
that day.
Best spot in town.
Yet the
The food is
atmosphere
amazing.
felt
We have to
strangely
come back.
rich. Michael stood there longer than he expected, quietly watching the scene unfold. Something about it made him uneasy. How could people with so little
This is
appear
so
so
good.
content?
It really is.
Back home,
Can we have
happiness
more?
required much more. Better houses, higher salaries, carefully planned vacations. But here, under dim lights and plastic chairs, people seemed completely at
The
peace.
food is delicious tonight.
tried to explain
yes,
it
pass
away.
The rice, please.
Maybe
Cheers to
they
good
were simply
company.
used to it.
Cheers.
Maybe they didn't know what they were missing. But as the evening stretched on, the laughter never
Woohoo,
faded.
This is fun.
Nobody
Yes,
seemed
that's
rushed.
I'm winning
Nobody
the race.
seemed stressed.
High five.
And slowly, a strange thought crept into Michael's mind. What if happiness wasn't missing here?
Everything looks delicious.
What if happiness
Please
had
join
simply
us.
been
Thank you, I
misunderstood
will.
where
Have
he
some
came
noodles.
from? Before the story continues, comment below where you're watching from and subscribe to the channel, because what Michael discovered in the Philippines would eventually challenge everything he thought he knew about wealth, success, and what it really means to live a fulfilling life. Michael originally planned to stay in the Philippines for only 2 weeks. His visit was strictly business. A consulting project had brought him overseas, and his schedule was filled with meetings, spreadsheets, and presentations that needed to be completed before he returned home. But curiosity quietly changed his routine. Each morning before work, he walked through the neighborhood outside his apartment. Every day, something new surprised him. People greeted him warmly,
Magandang umaga.
even when they had never
Tito
met him
Michael, fresh
before.
from today.
Small
Salamat.
shop owners
You're welcome.
remembered his
Enjoy.
name after only one visit. Neighbors shared food casually, passing plates across tables, as if generosity required no explanation. In Chicago, kindness often felt transactional. People rarely admitted it openly, but favors were remembered and returned later. Conversations sometimes carried an invisible ledger. But here, kindness moved differently. No one seemed worried about keeping score. During one of these morning walks, Michael met a tricycle driver named Daniel. Daniel wore a faded shirt and had the kind of wide, effortless smile that made strangers feel comfortable immediately. They started talking while Michael waited for a ride. What began as a short conversation quickly stretched into something longer. Daniel spoke openly about his life, his children, his work, his struggles supporting his family. He mentioned financial problems casually, almost the way someone might talk about the weather. Michael listened carefully, waiting for frustration or resentment to appear somewhere in Daniel's words, but it never did. Daniel didn't pretend life was easy. He simply refused to let hardship define it. That distinction unsettled Michael more than poverty ever could. A few days later, Daniel invited Michael to his daughter's birthday celebration. Michael expected something modest, maybe a quiet gathering with a few relatives. Instead, he walked into a house filled with music, laughter, and people packed shoulder to shoulder. Neighbors brought dishes of food. Children ran around chasing balloons. Someone set up a karaoke machine while others clapped and sang loudly. Nobody checked their phones. Nobody talked about work. Nobody tried to impress anyone. The room was loud, chaotic, and full of life. At one point, Michael asked Daniel how gatherings like this were possible when money seemed so limited. Daniel looked confused for a moment. Then he smiled and said something Michael would never forget. Celebration doesn't need money. It only needs people. That sentence followed Michael for the rest of his trip. Walking back to his apartment that night, he realized something uncomfortable about his own life. He couldn't remember the last time he had been fully present anywhere. Not at work, not during dinner, not even on vacation. His life had been optimized for productivity and efficiency. Somewhere along the way, joy had quietly become scheduled instead of experienced. Months later, after returning to Chicago, people often asked Michael why Filipinos seemed so happy despite having less. His answer was simple. They weren't happier because they had less. They were happier because they needed less. When happiness depends on relationships, belonging, and shared support, those needs are easier to fulfill. But when happiness depends on endless upgrades, achievements, and recognition, it becomes harder to reach. Michael realized the Philippines had never given him answers. It had given him something more powerful, a mirror. Happiness was never something waiting at the end of success. It was something that needed protection every single day.